Welcome to the Relaxed Dog Podcast, the podcast where the dogs are the stars of the show. Welcome to episode 74 of the Relaxed Dog Podcast, sponsored by therelaxeddog.com. Thank you very much for finding this podcast. Welcome back if you are a regular listener, and an extra special welcome if you are a new listener. I am your host, Robert Ober, and I hope that you and your dog are well. My guest this week is Erica Salvemini, and we'll be talking about Dalai. But first, in some doggy news, we go to Queensland here in Australia, and a young, around about 4.5-year-old staffy by the name of Millie was playing in the backyard with her new friend Tonka, who was just a couple of months old, and unfortunately they had an intruder. Millie took the lead and defended Tonka from the brown snake that had got into the yard. Millie disabled the brown snake, but in doing so suffered quite a few bites to the face and paws. Millie and Tonka's guardians were at home at the time, so it wasn't too long before they noticed that something was amiss with the pair of dogs. Rushed them to the vet. Tonka was pretty much cleared, and Millie had the anti-venom treatment, spent the next 4 days there, and they are now recovered and all back together again. Now, we all know dogs and cats can be an interesting mix. So when the guardians of Raylan, 3 years after they rescued him, brought home their first foster kitten, they were very relieved when Raylan played and enjoyed the company of the kitten and basically became a foster father to the kitten. We fast forward 6 years, and Raylan has apparently been a foster father to around 60 kittens. And a lot of those are on Raylan's Instagram account, which is amassing quite a few followers. And as I've mentioned followers, I'd just like to say I really appreciate all the followers of this podcast. It's great to see people enjoying other people's stories about awesome dogs. And I would really appreciate it if you would like to tell more of your friends, and then you could have even more to talk about. And yes, dogs are awesome. Speaking of, here is this week's interview. Welcome to the Relaxed Dog Podcast. I am here with Erica Salvemini. How are you?
I'm great, Robert. Thanks so much for having me. How are you today?
I am fantastic. Thank you very much. So whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm in the US of A. I'm on the East Coast in New Jersey, northern New Jersey. So where I'm at, you can actually see the New York skyline. So that gives you some perspective on where I am abouts in the world.
Oh, nice. And who are we going to talk about today?
Today, we're going to talk about my Dalai dog. And that's, she's got an interesting spelling. It's more like, well, not more like, it's actually spelled Dalai, like the Dalai Lama. She's a Border Collie, and she was born with what they call the Buddhist thumbprint on the top of her head. So we were toying with some names when we decided what to name her. And there was a few Dalais that were popping up. And I thought, well, why not make it Dalai like the Dalai Lama because she has this Buddhist thumbprint on her head. So
nice.
So that's, yeah. So that's Dalai. Of course, the spelling kind of screws people up a little bit, like at the veterinarian, they're like Dalai. And I'm like, no, you could just say Dalai.
So I'm going to ask you to take us back in time to just before you and Dalai met and talk to us about the hows and whys that happened.
Sure. Well, it's an interesting story. It was 2014 and it was November, and I was getting ready to go to, I was on my way to Othello, Washington. I was doing a bit of a volunteer effort, but also, there was a show called The Animal House, and it was a pilot program that they were just kicking off, and it was in the works for about a year before then. And the show had a purpose. It had a noble purpose, and it was to create or rebuild animal shelters in places of need. Mm-hmm. And so they did this little contest to see, who would win the first, rebuild. And so they picked this animal shelter in the middle of podunk nowhere, Othello, Washington State. Beautiful area. It's quite lovely out there. And the animal shelter that they had was kind of like just this little tiny rinky-dink nothing next to a garbage dump, kind of. And it was what they did have. There was a fire and it had kind of burnt down and there wasn't much there. So this lovely area won the contest to have this animal shelter get rebuilt. And I was invited to come on and be part of the show because I'm a groomer and I own my own pet spa. They asked me to be the groomer host. So I was thrilled, of course. And so I was on my way to this trip to basically what we did was we worked there for a week volunteering to rebuild this shelter, which is exactly what we did. And it was filmed and everything. It was one of the more wonderful things I've done in my life. The show ended up not taking off because at the time there were a few other programs just like it, coming off, kind of, I guess, being picked up. Mm-hmm. So this show ended up not being picked up, but it was okay. It was a wonderful experience, and met a lot of wonderful people. And I'll get to the point of the story. There was a lot of animals coming in every day, being brought in off the side of the road. Either they had gotten hurt by a car, by a truck, or abandoned, that sort of thing, which I guess happens all the time in the world, everywhere, doesn't it? And so this mama dog, who was an orange and white Border Collie, and her, I guess, husband dog, he was a beautiful, very large black and white Border Collie. They had this litter of puppies under a tractor in Othello at this ranch. There was like a 7,000 buffalo cattle ranch. It was tremendous. Mm. And so the director and creator of this show, of Animal House, Rebecca Rodriguez, went to the owner of the cattle ranch and said, I see you have these little tiny puppies, these Border Collie puppies underneath this tractor, and they're probably going to get eaten by coyotes. And he said, yeah, they probably are. And that's just kind of what happens. And it's just a matter of fact. And she was not taking no for an answer and offered him some money and said, can I take them? I will find good homes for them. And he was like, yeah, sure. And even was able to get the mama fixed so that she wouldn't have any more puppies that would end up underneath the tractor and probably get eaten by coyotes. So on the set, these puppies arrive. And by the time I got to see them, because there was like at least 1,000 people on the set between volunteers and the people doing the show themselves, they were all spoken for except to the one, which was Dolly, which was supposed to be my girl, apparently, because she ended up being my dog. Mm-hmm. And I sent you one of the pictures, which was the picture of me picking her up and holding her. And that was it. I was done. I was done for. Now, back at home in New Jersey, I had another adopted Border Collie who I didn't know was a Border Collie for many years because she was tricolored. And I didn't know, like the numbskull I was, I didn't know that Border Collies came in these multicolors. And she had many different colors, but she was in fact a Border Collie, and she was very quirky. And now I understood why after the fact. But she was older and unbeknownst to me was going to pass away in 4 more months. And I didn't know that. So I was able to bring little Dolly home, and they were able to spend the next 4 months together. And Paloma was my older girl who ended up having congestive heart failure she kind of schooled Dolly on the ways of being a big girl puppy and helped her grow up just a little bit. And Paloma got to spend, the next 4 months of her life with Dolly, which was really nice. And I have two little boys at home, so who at the time were, let's see, 5 and 6. So it was really special that I was able to bring Dolly home without knowing that this was even going to happen, and kind of helped, heal some of that pain of that loss that was coming. So, yeah.
So how were the first few weeks or first, say, month or so with coming home with Dolly into that new environment and being such a young pup?
Yeah, it was interesting. I had always adopted older pets from shelters, and I had never, that was my, I'm 50 now. So, I was like 44 then or so. And that was the first time I'd experienced raising a puppy. So it was a lot of round the clock tending to and taking her out, in the wee hours of the morning. And it was cold winter months. So I was like, oh boy, here I am doing this. This is what's happening now. I hadn't planned on getting a dog. I hadn't planned on getting a puppy. I called my husband then at the time from Othello and was like, this is happening. Look at this picture of this puppy, and, FaceTiming to see the dog. And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, well, I'm kind of doing it anyway. If you were here holding her, you would understand. And when I got off the plane with her, the kids just came running over, and he was, she ended up becoming his dog. Like she bonded to him more than anything else, which was something special. And that's okay. That's just the way things happen sometimes. But she kept me on my toes. It was like having a baby in the house again. And, what's she chewing on? And, but she wasn't really a bad puppy. And she's certainly a smart puppy because she is a Border Collie. And everything that they say about those dogs is, my gosh, so true. We had one of those little bells that they put on top of like a front desk at a hotel, and trained her how to ring that bell if she wanted something. And she learned within, I don't know, a few tries of just showing her. It's kind of astonishing what she could do and pick up. She jumps through hula hoops for treats. She does all sorts of things, and smart girl. Yeah. So.
And Paloma sort of like connected sort of straight away, or was there a little bit of?
I mean, Dolly was a puppy, right? So she's nipping at Paloma and, wanting to tug on her tail. And Paloma was not, she'd put up with it for a few minutes, and then she'd like, rah, 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 tell her, all right, that's enough, back off. Back off, runt. But she would let Dolly come over and snuggle with her in her bed. And, she was at the end of her life. And so, yeah, she could only take Dolly in little spurts. And Dolly was little and full of energy. So she could go on and on and on. So we would have to intervene and like give Paloma a break, because we saw that she was getting winded, and, she really looked her age once this little puppy came into the house. So we'd split them up and give her a break, which, she put up with her.
What was the sort of setup in the house like? Did they free roam, or did they have crates, or?
She had a crate. She did. Yeah. Did that last? I don't think that lasted for very long. Yeah. I think I felt bad leaving her downstairs. I wanted her closer to me. So I think after maybe a month or so, the crate training thing kind of ended. But maybe when we left the house, see, the thing is, I also own a grooming shop. So I was able to take her with me so that she wasn't alone in the house during the day, which was nice. So, we didn't really have to do too much of the crate training stuff. And then we had like little baby gates to quarter off certain parts of the house. So we'd keep her in the living room area, with us, or I'd keep her in the kitchen depending on what we were doing, and we'd, close that off a little bit. So she wouldn't have full reign of the house right away. It was too much for such a little dog,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
What about sleeping arrangements, and did they change over time?
Oh, yeah. It's funny. She wasn't big on the couch, and she wasn't big on the bed either. As much as, to my chagrin, I wanted her to cuddle with me. And I don't know if that's a Border Collie thing, like they're working dogs. And so she was more interested in like, where's my next ball? She focused her energy on balls, which I learned that Border Collies can become very myopic. And so if you have to be careful with the things that you do with them. Although it can just happen anyway. My Paloma was myopic with squirrels. So she saw a squirrel, forget it. That was it. She was on that, and you couldn't deviate. She couldn't deviate from it. So we'd have to like literally drag her away from a tree, and she'd just sit there and look up at the tree and bark and bark and bark and bark and bark and just wouldn't stop. And Dolly became like that with balls and Frisbees. And so my point of saying all that was she wasn't a big snuggler or cuddler. She was almost always like, what are we doing next? What's happening next? Mm. We were like, do you sleep? Does this dog sleep? So she kind of just, she would sleep by the foot of the bed on the floor, like near us. And she had her own little bed. Yeah.
Nice. So you mentioned the balls and the Frisbees. Is there any other toys that she sort of played with?
Not really. We tried lots of different things, but she has a real thing especially for tennis balls. And to the point where we had to hide her crate of toys, because it would be 4 a.m. and you're not ready to get up yet. And she's at you at the side of the bed, and she's throwing the balls at you. Like she's hitting you with them. And then you open your eyes, and there's this dog's nose in your face. And she's like, when are you getting up? When is our next playtime? And so we realized, she had tons of toys all over the house. The balls were the only ones that she would take out and do anything with. And eventually we started to notice, I don't know, maybe when she was about 3 or 4, that her canines were getting shorter, her canine teeth. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I never noticed her cracking them or breaking them, or, it's not like she's chewing on hard, toys that would be breaking her teeth. What's happening? And I was getting worried that I was going to have to take her to the vet and have dental work done. So I took her to 2 different vets. It was the second vet who, thank God, was smart enough to say, oh yeah, I've seen that before. There's, or after asking a number of questions, and she did ask, does she like tennis balls? And I was like, well, yes, she does. And she's like, well, the microfiber on those tennis balls acts like sandpaper. Yep. Yeah. And she was catching hundreds of balls a day. Like we would literally have to just, if you were sitting at the desk doing your work, and our back door was right there, we'd throw the ball out the door while you're sitting at your desk doing your work, and she'd come right back in. And we could do that for 3 hours straight, probably more. And she wouldn't tire. She would just keep going and keep going and keep going, chasing the ball, grabbing it, bringing it back, dumping it at your feet. The same thing over and over again. So eventually we had to stop with the tennis balls, because those tennis balls were actually eating away the enamel at her teeth.
So I'm guessing then that games like fetch would be her favorite, or does she have any other games that she likes to play?
Fetch is definitely one of them. And then when my kids will go outside in the backyard to play, so she's got this thing. They play basketball a lot, both my boys. And she wants to play. She plays defense. It's the craziest thing. Adult men have come over and have said she's good. Like she keeps the ball away from me. It's the craziest thing. If she could grow hands and get the ball in the basket, she would do it. That's the only thing that she can't do. But she keeps on those kids like white on rice. It's the most hilarious thing. They get upset. They're very frustrated because she takes the ball away from them. So what we started to do was we give her another ball because she continuously deflates basketballs. So now we have to keep the basketballs away from her. Mm-hmm. So we keep there's like 2 or 3 that we let her have. And then we keep the good ones away, up tucked on a shelf in the garage. And she also has this deflated little soccer ball that she'll keep in her mouth. And she uses it like it's a third arm or like another hand. And she uses it to hit the basketball with. And also it helps her control her biting, because otherwise she tries to grab the ball with her mouth. Mm-hmm. And she can't do that. She knows she pops the balls. So she always keeps something in her mouth now, and will chase the balls that way, or chase the boys when they've got the balls and they're trying to, make a basket or whatever. So, and she's good with soccer too. The dog is interesting. She's something to watch and play with, because she's quite good and quite agile. So yeah, she's interesting. She's a funny girl, man. And then of course Frisbees, which, you see all the dogs on YouTube and out in the world playing Frisbee, and, mostly like Border Collie type dogs. And it's true. They just have this natural knack for it. Mm-hmm. And so we started with a nice, soft, rubbery Frisbee, and she just immediately took to it and loves it. So she draws crowds in the park. People will stop, and because that's another thing she could just do for hours. She could just run and catch, but she jumps up in the air and it's not enough that she can just catch the Frisbee. She's got to flip in the air and do all these fancy things and land in the opposite position that she was in when she started to catch the Frisbee. It's crazy. So we're like, you're going to kill yourself one of these days. You're going to twist your neck. You're going to give yourself whiplash, but she doesn't care. It's never enough for her. She's like high intensity. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really funny.
So what would her regular walk around your house be? Or...
Well, Dolly has a lot of anxiety. So her walks they started to become a problem, probably at about 3 or 4 years old. I'd say around Halloween, when she started to see the big giant decorations. I don't know if do you guys have Halloween in Australia?
We do, but it's not anywhere near as a big a thing as you guys have.
Okay. Yeah. So I think every year everybody's got to do it bigger. So they keep coming out with these crazy wild decorations that are almost nearly as big as a house. And they're out in front of your house, and they're like making all these scary sounds. And sometimes there's like smoke machines and all sorts of stuff going on. And they scare the heck out of this dog. She's already kind of a nervous dog to begin with. Doesn't like loud sounds. If a truck backfires or there's a motorcycle, racing cars, running, driving past in the street, any loud noises or there's a plane overhead, she'll flatten out. It's really peculiar. I don't know if it's because she's like inherently like hardwired to be on a farm or something. And this big city, not that we're in a big city, we're in a suburb, kind of like a suburb of Manhattan. So yeah, I guess compared to being on a ranch, that it is kind of a noisy environment. So the point of all that is to say she stopped walking. So we'd take her outside, and she'd put on the brakes and like literally use her front feet and like put on the brakes, and was like, no, I'm not going. I refuse. So we finally realized it was the decorations. And then after the decorations would go away, she started to get a little bit better, but never really quite recovered. And then, summertime rolls around, and then you get these grand thunderstorms, and those freak her out. So then she'd hide. We started noticing she was hiding in the bathtub and the shower. shower stall, which was so upsetting. We felt so bad for her. And then, of course, here you have like the 4th of July, and even on New Year's, people set off all these fireworks, which I really just can't stand. They're dangerous, and they can, I know of situations and stories where animals get hurt. I don't want to talk about that stuff, but it's real. And the noise is a real factor, and it scares the bejesus out of my dog. And there she is in the shower stall again, hiding, flattening out, and would just stay there for hours and wouldn't come out. So the walks became a bit of a problem. So now it's the backyard. So luckily we have a large backyard, or had a large backyard for her. And that's what her outdoor time consisted of, besides going to the park. So that there's a big giant park down the block for her to go and chase her Frisbees and catch her balls. And so it was either the backyard or the park for Dolly.
Nice.
Yeah.
And does she have any other special doggy friends down at the park?
No, not really, because even at the dog run, she wasn't interested in other dogs. My other dog, Paloma, was like that too. We'd get there. Again, that goes to the myopic thing. Border Collies tend to be quirky pets. So they don't do regular doggy things. And so Paloma was only interested in squirrels. And then we were like, oh, great. We have Dolly, she likes to play ball with the ball and the Frisbee. So maybe she'll like to go to the park and play with other dogs. No, wrong. She's like, she'd get mad if we throw the ball and another dog would be like, oh, that's a ball. It's getting thrown. I'm going to go chase it. We can play together. And she's like, no, that's my ball. This is my time. And she had wanted nothing to do with any of these other dogs. So, yeah, kind of a bummer like that.
What about any other animal species? Do you have any other interaction?
Well, we have 2 cats. We had 3, and she's okay with the cats. She'd chase them a little bit, and the cats weren't really too fond of that. But our older cat, Moose, who he's since passed away, we'd often find them kind of not necessarily snuggling together, but laying on the couch next to each other and kind of taking their naps together. So there's a bit of camaraderie there. And Moose used to like to go around the neighborhood and get treats from the other neighbors. And he was a big cat. He earned his name. And so sometimes when Dolly would still walk, we'd be walking her down the block, and all of a sudden Moose would pop out of a bush and then just start walking with us. And he'd go on walks with us, with Dolly, which was really cute. And the neighbors like that. That was a cute thing. I had the same thing happen with Paloma. We had another cat that used to follow us and walk with us on our walks, which was really cute. And so more friendly with the cats, I'd say, than the dogs necessarily.
Interesting.
I know, it is.
What about going away on trips or holidays?
Yeah, Dolly liked that. She loves getting in the car. We started to travel with her from a young age at about, how old was she? She was maybe 6 months old. We drove down to Virginia with her, and it's nice that there's a lot of hotels now that are pet friendly. So that's wonderful. And you can take your dog with you and travel and not have to worry about leaving them home. So she loved the elevator. At first she was like, again, the elevator would go up and she'd kind of like squat down, like, what's happening? And then eventually she got really good at it and really liked it. And she'd go in and she'd sit and she'd be, pride herself on her good manners. And the people would always comment on what a good dog she was, and just so smart and so well behaved. And never took her on a plane. I wouldn't, except for getting her home from Othello. But, we'd probably have to buy her own seat because she's not small and can't fit underneath the seat. And I certainly wouldn't put her in cargo, because that would not be good. I would be scared for that. Mm-hmm. And, but yeah, she loves to travel and loves to go down to the beach, loves the beach.
Okay. So in the car, where's her spot?
In the back seat.
Back seat.
Either the back seat or the far back of the truck where she could just lay down and hang out. But the back seat she liked a lot because she loved to look out the window, and like most dogs, so she's very much a dog in that regard. She liked to look out the window and stick her head out and just have her ears flopping in the wind and the wind blowing in her mouth and her tongue hanging out. So yeah, definitely a favorite.
Do you think she had a favorite place to visit that you drove to, or that you ever spent
the park?
Spent holidays?
We'd have to spell it out, PARK, or use code words, because as soon as she knew or thought or saw you putting on your sneakers, she was like at the door, out of attention. So, but on vacation, probably the beach. She liked going to the beach, and but it's hard playing in the sand with her because she, diving after those balls and frisbees, she'd go face first and didn't care that her nose would be packed with sand and her throat would be packed with sand, and she'd just keep going. But not a big swimmer. Mm-hmm. She didn't really care for the water.
And that was the same with like still water as well as the beach, or?
We had a pool, and she didn't really want to go in it, but she'd stay on the edge and monitor the kids and bark if they were, if anybody was splashing too much. She would get hysterical and run from end to end of the pool, barking and barking. I think she thought we were drowning and she was trying to save us, but we could never get her to come into the pool. And she would, at the water, like still water, water at the beach, it kind of comes in and goes out. She would, play at the edge of the water a little bit, but not really go into the water. Okay. So Paloma would go into the bay, at least when we used to go down to the beach with her. She liked to go into the bay and would go chase her balls out there that way and do some doggy paddling. She liked that.
Ah. And did that sort of like not getting on with water transition to things like bath time and grooming?
Oh, boy. That's a very funny question, because I've been grooming dogs for almost 20 years now. And sadly, I have one of the worst dogs to groom, which is hilarious because I'm the owner of the business, right? Dolly does not like grooming at all. So it would take 2 or 3 people in total, like myself and 2 other people, to help comfort her, coddle her, baby her. We'd pull out all the stops for her. I mean, I own a compassionate pet care business anyway. That's basically that's the foundation of my business. Gentle pet care, gentle pet grooming. And so we've got our music going, the nice, gentle relaxation music, the solfeggio frequencies, and we pick the ones that like help calm your nervous system. We have the diffuser with the lavender essential oils. So we've got all of that stuff, and we're pulling it all out. We've got everything going when a dog like Dolly is in there. And she was great in the bathtub for the water. Interestingly enough, she would just kind of stand there and freeze like a statue, like, oh my God, when is this going to be over? But as soon as we got the dryer near her, she just would howl and scream and swat. And so we have these like little head socks that we put on her that kind of pin their ears down to their head to help kind of quell that noise a little bit. And that would help a lot. And then, but again, there always had to be somebody there standing there talking to her, babying her, giving her treats. Peanut butter was her favorite, or is her favorite. So that helps. And then once I got her on the table, the brush. Oh my goodness, that dog just does not like having a brush anywhere near her. So we would just lots of distractions, somebody'd have to talk to her, distract her, hold her. And then at some point you just kind of wave the white flag and be like, all right, that's enough. You look good. Grooming time is over.
Nails?
Not so bad with the nails, interestingly enough. Not great, but not, would let us do it with a little bit of a fight. So, yeah, she'd make us work for it. That's for sure.
Health-wise, has she ever had any sort of issues and trips to the vet?
Not too many, mostly like no surprise, like sprained neck, back type stuff. Because, and the vet told me, you're going to have to watch her because this is the thing that we see the most in Border Collies because they don't understand go easy. They're used to working 16 hours a day on a farm and they just go, 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 go. And for a dog like Dolly, go, go, go means, getting the ball. That was her job. Like she felt that was her job and she needed to do that. And she was going to do it the best of any dog out there in the world. And so sometimes she would pull her back out, and sprain herself and she'd still try to go. And it's kind of crazy. So we have to just we pack up all her balls and toys and put them away and not play anything. And she'd just sit and look at us and cry and whine. And it was very sad, but we have to just go easy when that happens. Also, the pads on the bottoms of her feet, when sometimes if she'd chase balls on AstroTurf, because we have a very long driveway, and if we didn't go to the park that day, but she was in need of some extra exercise, we would throw the ball down the driveway and she'd run back and forth and back and forth, back and forth. And we realized that doing that too much, she was wearing away the bottoms of her pads because she was so aggressive in her running. Mm-hmm. So again, lessons learned, and we just would go easy and would take about a week for the bottoms of her feet to heal. And she didn't care. She was still going. She was like hobbling on these raw pads of hers, and she still wanted to go and chase those darn balls.
They're very, very stoic and very very stubborn in mindset.
Absolutely. So I can see how I understand why they use them as working dogs and how phenomenal they must be at their work. We even took her to a sheep farm an hour away from our house. We researched one where the woman would let you bring your Border Collie to work with. It was too bad she wasn't closer to us, but she let Dolly work with the other Border Collies, and she had sheep that she could, kind of learn how to herd. Mm-hmm. And she was very young at the time. So it was amazing to watch, to see, because, it's just instinct. It just she knows exactly she would herd the cats at home. So we knew that she'd be good at what she was supposed to be doing. So yeah, it's kind of sad because that's what her heart and what her soul wants to be doing. And so here I have this Border Collie living in this suburb, of New York City. And, was that good or was that bad for her? I don't know. But after you have a dog as a pet, how do you part with them and give them away? But part of us was always like, maybe that's where she's supposed to be. And honestly, I don't know that she would look back if we left her there. She might be like, all right, cool, thanks. I'm finally home. Thanks, guys. But yeah, she's ours. She's our family now, so she's not on the farm herding sheep, but she loves it. She's real good at it.
So apart from, say, any sort of herding things, has she got any other quirky sort of habits at home?
I think that's the bulk of it. The balls and the no, I think that's pretty much that's pretty much all of it. Yeah.
When she's not doing that, what's her favorite area of the house?
She's kind of like the cats, where she'll take up different spots, different times of the day. So tile floor, if it's a warm, hot day, just to keep herself cool. Kitchen floor, back door where the sun's coming in, or by our bed at the foot of the bed. She used to love that when we'd be sleeping. Yeah. Kind of, some regular doggy stuff.
If I asked you what comes into your mind straight away, and when I say what would be your happiest sort of memory or something that comes into your mind with you and her?
Probably meeting her. That was really special. And spending that time with her, getting to know her, and then traveling home on the plane with her. She was just this tiny little peanut. And bringing her home and the boys meeting her and how special that was. It was, those were really fun days. Mm-hmm. She was just a little puppy, and meeting Paloma. Yeah.
I was going to ask before, how did she cope, or did she change when Paloma passed and she was left by herself, doggy-wise?
You know, we changed up the routine a bit for her. That's kind of when she started to come to my business every day. And I kind of did that on purpose. Besides, I didn't want to leave her alone, and I didn't want her to have to feel like she was missing Paloma. So she was pretty young. So she did okay. You know, I think if she had been a bit older, it might have been harder on her. But being so young, I don't think it really, you know, she was looking around for her quite a bit and, you know, going to her bed and stuff. But she came through okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And taking her to work with you, that would have been a positive thing for everyone. And did that sort of impact on customers and other people coming in when they saw her?
Oh, yeah. People would go gaga over her. She was just cute as can be. And it was good for her to socialize too and meet all the different dogs and different people. And so I knew that was important, that, you know, I did my reading and, you know, how do you raise a puppy? And so there's, you know, a certain number of dogs and a certain number of people that they're supposed to meet within their first year to make sure that they get proper socialization. So that was really good for her. And, you know, even though she doesn't really necessarily want to go and play with other dogs, she's okay with other dogs. So whereas I do have some pets that come into my business who you can see, especially now and during COVID, we call them COVID puppies in my business, just because you can see the difference, especially where there's like a family of dogs, where there's, you know, there's the dog that was there before COVID, and then there's the puppy, the COVID puppy. And that dog hasn't gotten much socialization and is super, super high anxiety, has separation anxiety, doesn't really do well leaving the parents because they're with them all the time at home. So I was grateful that Dolly didn't really have those issues. And so, yeah, it was a positive experience bringing her to the shop. Once she started getting grooms, not so much when she was younger, but after like a year and a half, she started to, you know, she decided, I don't like this anymore. And so coming to my grooming shop as she got a little bit older started to get a little bit harder, because she then associated it with her actually getting groomed, as opposed to I'm just going to hang out with some friends and everybody's going to tell me how great I am. So she loved going on walks, and she loved people before she got scared of walks, before the phobias set in. She loved going out and meeting new people. She loved it when she would go up to people like, hey, stop, talk to me. And she would make people stop and pet her and talk to her. It was very cute. So that was good. Very sociable dog.
Can I ask you to complete the sentence? I can't believe my dog ate.
My favorite boot.
The
heel off my favorite boot. Yeah. Other than that, she's pretty good. She didn't really destroy too many things. It was up until about 6 months old, and then she didn't really, and she wasn't really bad. Like, as far as I know, some dogs will like jump up on the counter and eat your food. Oh, you know what? She did one time. We were having a family barbecue. She did snatch a burger right out of one of the kids' hands, and it was gone in an instant, and so was she. So that was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How was the growing up with the boys, and did she sort of change at all? Was there a noticeable change at any stage of life?
No, not too much. I mean, puppies have more energy. But then again, puppies take a lot of naps too. So when it was nice that the boys had her, and grew up with her, and they learned how to raise a puppy and how to be responsible with her. And she was very protective of them and, watched over them. Paloma was the same way. Really good dogs. So, not too much changed, I'd say. Just as she got older, she got more like, big girl dog stuff as opposed to puppy stuff, where she would start to kind of look out for the boys as opposed to them being playmates of hers. But she still always loved to play with them, out in the backyard playing basketball and stuff like that. So that never went away.
Oh, no, nice. Is there anything else that's sort of coming to mind as far as adventures or?
No, I think the one big adventure we had was taking her down to Virginia, and she loved that. That was a really nice trip, and she enjoyed that, and riding the elevators and stopping the wait staff in the hallways and getting to go into all the stores. It was a very dog-friendly area, and kind of getting to go shopping with her mom and dad. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, that was probably our biggest adventure, and she really enjoyed. We enjoyed it too.
Oh, nice. Did she go out on like trail hikes and things like that much, or?
Oh yeah, definitely. We have a number of trails near us that became a regular mainstay for us to go on these big. It was a little bit, good news, bad news, because every time we went out, it was always like, okay, we're going out to play ball. We're going out to play Frisbee. So we'd have to leave the house with nothing in our hands and to let her know that's not where we're going. That's not what we're doing. We're not going to the PARK. But once we got to the trails, she loved it. And she liked to go on the long walks and, smell all the different smells. And it was you could see her light up. Her olfactory systems would all be heightened, and she'd get into it. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah, she likes that stuff.
Wow. Was there ever any sort of like interesting experiences with any other species out on the trails?
Did she ever see? Not too many where there was like, interaction. The nature, the animals that like lived there and that was their home, they kind of stayed away. So they kind of minded their own business, and Dolly just kind of walked and observed. Yeah.
Do you think she had a favorite season?
I would say the cooler weather for sure. Yeah. Because she can run and run and run without getting overheated. So, late fall into winter time, and then springtime, definitely. Once it gets too hot or too cold, actually the cold never really seemed to bother her. So I'd say, yeah, like fall into winter and then spring. Summer was not her favorite. I think that's probably the case for a lot of dogs.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. And snow?
Yeah. Yeah, she likes snow. Snow is a lot of fun. She liked romping in the snow. She likes to jump up and down in it and stick her nose in it. Paloma did too. She'd just stick her nose in a big pile of snow and just get her right down in there and root in it and just take a big sniff and just be like, what's under there? What? I guess because, they can't smell anything with that big giant blanket of snow covering everything. they'd walk and walk and walk. Like, where am I going to squat and do my business? I can't smell my favorite spots. What's going on? And so they'd stick their nose in the snow and root around to try and smell something and figure out where they're going to go. But besides that, yeah, they love playing in the snow too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It has been a very enjoyable conversation. Do you want to let the listeners know about your profession and your business, and if anyone wants to contact you, where would they find you?
Thanks, Robert. You're very sweet. Sure. So I can be found at the business name is Just 4 Paws Pet Spa, and that's JUST and the number 4 Paws Pet Spa. And that's our website name as well, justforpawspetspa.com. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. You can find me, Erica Salvemini, on LinkedIn, where I talk a lot about we also just started a virtual grooming academy. So for anybody who is passionate about animals, just as we are, and want to follow their passion and work with animals, which is something I did nearly 20 years ago. I used to be in marketing and worked in big business, and I always had a passion for animals. They saved me and got me through a lot of tough times in my life, and I wanted to pay it back and pay it forward and follow my bliss. So I turned that into a business, and it's been wonderful. And there's so many wonderful people that I get to meet and get to help them turn their passion into working with animals. So yeah, if you're interested, check it out. It's because of COVID, we turned the academy into a virtual program. So you can pretty much take the program anywhere in the world, which is nice. And we're going to be IPG certified, which is the International Professional Groomers Association. So that way there's international certification on our certificates as well. Oh, so nice. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for allowing me to come on your show. This was really nice. And it was wonderful to meet you and see all your wonderful dogs behind you on your awesome wallpaper is awesome. I love it. And this was a lot of fun. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you too. Take care.
You take care. Bye.
Thank you very much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Thank you to our new listeners in Philadelphia in the US and in Graz in Austria. I hope you're enjoying. If you'd like to leave a review on whatever platform you are listening on, it would be appreciated, or even better, tell a friend. If you would like to contact me, it's podcast@therelaxeddog.com. Feel free to join the Facebook group. And that'll do for this time round. Until next week, stay safe and remember, your dog is family.